The 1950s are often remembered as the golden age of automobiles, a time of chrome, tail fins, and big American dreams. But behind the glamour and nostalgia, some truly terrible cars rolled off the assembly lines. From massive marketing failures to bizarre designs, unsafe engineering, and cars that were simply ahead of their time in the worst possible way, these vehicles proved that even legendary automakers can get it very wrong. Some were ugly, some were unreliable, some were downright dangerous, and all of them somehow made it onto real roads. Whether you love classic cars, automotive history, or strange failures from the past, this video will surprise you, entertain you, and maybe even shock you. The Ford Edsel stands as the most infamous automotive failure, not just of the 1950s, but possibly of all time. Launched in 1958 after a colossal marketing campaign that promised a revolutionary vehicle, the Edsel landed with a thud. Its most defining feature, the vertical horse-collar grille, was relentlessly mocked and confused buyers, who found it downright bizarre. The hype created expectations that no car could ever live up to, and when the Edsel turned out to be just a gussied-up Ford, the public felt betrayed. The car became a symbol of corporate hubris, a costly lesson in overpromising and under-delivering. While Ford stumbled with marketing, Chevrolet was creating a different kind of automotive nightmare with the late 50s design of the Corvair. Its rear-engine layout, while innovative, introduced terrifying instability. Drivers found that at high speeds, the car's handling became dangerously unpredictable, leading to a reputation for being unsafe. The Corvair's design flaws became so notorious that they sparked a consumer safety movement, proving that a forward-thinking concept without proper engineering is a recipe for disaster. In an era of massive road-cruising sedans, the Nash Metropolitan was a fish out of water. This tiny car was marketed for its economy, but its diminutive size made it feel dangerously out of place on sprawling American highways. Its underpowered engine was another major drawback, struggling to conquer even mild hills and leaving drivers feeling vulnerable. The Metropolitan was a bold attempt to introduce a different kind of car to America, but it was simply too small and too weak for the demands of the time. Taking the concept of small to a comical extreme, were the prototype concepts for the AP50. Laughably tiny and fundamentally unsafe, these microcars were a novelty at best. The most absurd feature was its lack of a reverse gear. If you needed to back up, you had to get out, physically pick up the rear of the car, and turn it around by hand. It was less of a vehicle and more of a motorized curiosity, a testament to how far designers could push the boundaries of what could technically be called a car. Another European import that struggled to make sense on American roads was the BMW E-Waiter, known as the bubble car. Its most unusual feature was a single front opening door that incorporated the steering wheel. This design was not only strange, but also terrifying in a crash, as the driver's only exit would be blocked. With minimal horsepower, the Isetta could barely keep up with city traffic, let alone highways. It was an iconic piece of design, but as a practical car for daily use in the US, it was a complete failure. Not all failures were small. The Chrysler Turbine concept car, with its jet engine-inspired powertrain, looked like it drove straight out of a science fiction movie. However, this futuristic dream was a practical nightmare. The turbine engine was wildly complex and extremely expensive to maintain and repair. While it could run on almost any flammable liquid, its poor fuel economy and high manufacturing costs meant it was never a viable option for the mass market, remaining a fascinating but utterly impractical what-if. On the more affordable end of the spectrum, the Crossley Hotshot promised sporty fun on a budget but delivered mostly disappointment. Its build quality was notoriously cheap, leading to frequent and frustrating breakdowns that left owners stranded. The tiny engine, which was supposed to make it nimble and quick, provided underwhelming performance that failed to live up to its hotshot name. It was a classic case of getting what you paid for, and in this case, it wasn't much. By the late 1950s, Studebaker was in deep financial trouble, and it showed in their cars. The late 50s Champion models suffered from styling that lagged far behind the flashy, forward-looking designs of the Big Three. The company's well-known financial woes also hurt consumer confidence, impacting reliability and cratering resale value. Buyers were hesitant to invest in a car from a brand that might not be around to service it, sealing the Champion's fate as an also-ran. The Hudson Jet suffered a similar problem of outdated aesthetics. Its boxy, uninspired design looked old the moment it rolled off the assembly line. In an age of sleek lines and daring tail fins, the Jet failed to capture the imagination of the younger buyers Hudson desperately needed to attract. It was a competent car underneath, but its bland appearance made it invisible in a crowded and increasingly style-conscious market. Ford's ambition led to another spectacular failure, with the Skyliner retractable. This car featured a complex retractable hardtop that could fold into the trunk at the push of a button. Truly futuristic feature for the 1950s. The problem was, it rarely worked as intended. The mechanism was prone to malfunctioning, leaving owners with a half-open roof, or a trunk that wouldn't close. Furthermore, the heavy roof assembly added immense weight, which ruined the car's performance and fuel economy. Packard, once a titan of American luxury, made a desperate move with the Packard Hawk. It was essentially a Studebaker Hawk, with an awkward fish-like front end grafted on. This bizarre styling choice was meant to be distinctive, but ended up just turning buyers away. The car was also too expensive for what it offered, lacking the prestige and quality that the Packard name once signified. It was a sad final chapter for a legendary brand. European manufacturers also misjudged the American market, as seen with the Renault Dauphine. The US version of this French sedan was simply not built to handle American roads or driving habits. It suffered from chronic rust that could eat through the car in just a few years, and its engine was notoriously unreliable. The Dauphine quickly earned a reputation for being flimsy and disposable, becoming a punchline for poor automotive quality. Even the most prestigious brands could misstep. The Lincoln Continental Mark II was an undeniably beautiful car, a masterpiece of clean, elegant design. However, it was also absurdly overpriced, costing as much as a Rolls-Royce. Ford reportedly lost money on every single one they sold. Sales never came close to justifying the massive development costs, making this stunning vehicle a financial disaster and a lesson in pricing a car out of its own market. While other automakers embraced flash and power, early models of the AMC Rambler were often dismissed as boring and underpowered. AMC focused on practicality and economy, but in the excessive 1950s, that wasn't what most buyers wanted. The Rambler failed to compete with the flashier, more powerful cars rolling out of Detroit, and it was seen as a dull, sensible shoe in a closet full of high heels. Another three-wheeled oddity that tried to find a foothold was the Messerschmitt KR20. This cabin scooter felt more like a toy or a repurposed aircraft cockpit than a real car. Its three-wheel configuration made it inherently unstable, especially in corners. The tandem seating and bubble canopy were novel, but it was too strange and too compromised to be taken seriously as daily transportation. The 1950s obsession with style over substance reached its peak with the excessive fins on cars like the late decade Cadillac Series 62. The tail fins grew to absurd proportions, becoming a parody of themselves. Beyond just looking ridiculous to some, these massive fins had a negative impact on aerodynamics, affecting the car's handling at high speeds. It was a trend that had finally gone too far, a symbol of an era's design excesses. DeSoto, a mid-tier Chrysler brand, suffered from a terminal identity crisis with models like the Firesweep. The brand's lineup was confusing, and buyers simply didn't know where the Firesweep was supposed to fit in the market. Was it a budget luxury car, or a high-end family sedan? This confusing branding killed sales and contributed to the eventual demise of the entire DeSoto brand. The British Hillman Minx was yet another import that was too small and too underpowered for American tastes. While it was a perfectly adequate car for British roads, its weak engine performance disappointed US buyers accustomed to V8 power. It struggled to gain traction in a market that valued size and speed above all else, proving that what works in one country doesn't always translate to another. Kaiser Frazer tried to stay afloat by recycling old designs and passing them off as new models, a strategy embodied by the Kaiser Manhattan. Consumers weren't fooled. The cars looked dated, and the company's financial instability led to reliability issues and poor build quality, which further hurt brand trust. It was a desperate attempt that only accelerated the company's collapse. Finally, the 1950s were filled with incredible concept cars that looked amazing in magazines, but were completely unrealistic for real-world driving. From bubble-topped cruisers with no ventilation to vehicles powered by nuclear reactors, these concepts pushed imagination to the limit. While they looked futuristic, their wild designs and impractical features ensured they would never see a production line, remaining beautiful, dumb dreams of a future that never was. So, what do you think is the dumbest car of the 1950s? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. And if you enjoyed this trip through automotive history's biggest mistakes, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more videos on the best and worst cars ever made. Thanks for watching.